The Grand Pearl Hotel gleamed like a palace, its chandeliers casting a golden glow across the marble floors. Mia Lee adjusted the lapel of her crisp uniform, glancing briefly at her reflection in the glossy reception desk. The faint bags under her eyes were a testament to weeks of overtime. But she forced a smile. Professionalism above all else, she reminded herself. Her co-worker Sarah nudged her playfully. "Hey, Mia. Bet you can't smile any brighter than those chandeliers." Mia chuckled softly. "Well, at least they don't have to deal with Mr. Lamb's constant complaints." Sarah groaned. "Don't remind me. That man's ego barely fits through the doors." As if summoned by the conversation, the sound of clinking glasses and hushed laughter signaled the arrival of another VIP guest. Guests in tailored suits and glittering gowns strolled through the lobby, their presence radiating wealth and influence. "Back to work," Sarah whispered, straightening her posture. Mia adjusted her name tag, preparing to greet the next guest with her signature smile. But then the glass doors swung open, and an unusual figure stepped in. An old man shuffled inside, his frame frail and bent with the age. He wore a patch jacket and trousers too loose for his thin frame. His shoes were scuffed and mismatched, and he clutched a small cloth bag in trembling hands. The room seemed to pause. Conversations dwindled, and the clinking of glasses ceased. The old man walked cautiously, his eyes scanning the luxurious lobby as if unsure whether he belonged. A whisper cut through the silence. "What's he doing here?" "Probably lost," someone else murmured, their tone laced with disdain. Mia's heart sank as she watched the old man stop near a lavish arrangement of orchids, his expression unreadable. She could feel the tension in the room rising like a storm waiting to break. And then it did. "Excuse me," a voice boomed. Mia flinched as Mr. Lamb, one of the hotel's most demanding guests, marched toward the old man. His tailored suit and gold watch shimmered under the chandelier. "What is this?" Mr. Lamb gestured dramatically at the old man, addressing the entire lobby. "Who let him in? Does this hotel have no standards anymore?" Mia's stomach twisted. She glanced at Sarah, who avoided her gaze, pretending to be engrossed in paperwork. "Someone call security," Mr. Lamb snapped. "We can't have people like this wandering around." The old man stood still, his shoulders hunching as if to make himself smaller. He clutched his bag tighter, his eyes fixed on the marble floor. Mia couldn't bear it any longer. She stepped out from behind the desk, her heels clicking softly against the floor. "Sir," she said, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Lamb turned sharply, his glare like a dagger. "What did you say?" Mia took a steadying breath. "This man has done nothing wrong. He hasn't disturbed anyone or caused any harm." Mr. Lamb's laugh was cold and sharp. "Are you serious? Look at him. He doesn't belong here." "He's a person," Mia replied, her voice trembling but resolute. "And everyone deserves respect, no matter their appearance." The tension in the lobby was palpable. Guests exchanged incredulous glances, and Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear behind the desk. "Respect her," Mr. Lamb sneered. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to? I'm a loyal client of this hotel, someone who pays your salary, by the way, and you're defending him." Mia clenched her fists at her sides. "Yes, sir, I am. Because it's the right thing to do." The old man raised his head slightly, his weary eyes meeting Mia's. There was a flicker of something. Gratitude, perhaps. But he remained silent. "I want this man removed now," Mr. Lamb barked, turning to the nearest staff member. The manager, Mr. Min, hurried over, his face pale. "What's going on here?" he asked, though it was clear he already knew. "Your receptionist is refusing to do her job," Mr. Lamb said, his voice dripping with indignation. "If this man isn't gone in the next minute, I'll have your hotel's reputation dragged through the mud." Mr. Min's eyes darted to Mia, a mix of anger and fear in his expression. "Mia," he said in a low, urgent voice. "Apologize to Mr. Lamb and call security." "I can't do that," Mia said, her voice soft but unwavering. "Mia," Mr. Min hissed, stepping closer. "This is your job on the line. Do you understand that?" "I do," Mia replied. She turned back to Mr. Lamb. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I can't treat this man unfairly just because he doesn't look like he belongs here." Mr. Lamb's face turned red with anger. "Then I'll make sure you're fired by the end of the night." Mia's heart pounded, but she refused to back down. The old man's presence seemed to ground her, his quiet dignity giving her the strength to stand her ground. "Mia," Mr. Min said sharply, "this is your last warning." "I understand," Mia said, her voice trembling slightly. The security guards, hesitant but obedient, approached the old man. "Sir," one of them said gently, "we need to escort you out." The old man nodded, his movements slow and deliberate. As he turned to leave, he looked at Mia one last time. "Thank you, young lady," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I will never forget this." Mia felt a lump rise in her throat as she watched him walk out, his figure disappearing behind the glass doors. The lobby remained silent. Mr. Lamb gave a satisfied huff and stormed off toward the elevator. Mr. Min stepped closer to Mia, his face cold. He handed her a piece of paper. "This is your suspension notice," he said. "Your actions have seriously damaged the hotel's image. Pack your things and leave today." Mia took the paper, her hands trembling, but she didn't cry. She squared her shoulders and nodded. "Thank you for the opportunity," she said simply. As she walked away, the stares of her colleagues and guests burned into her back. Some looked shocked, others judgmental, but Mia refused to look back. Outside, the cool night air hit her like a wave. The city lights glittered, and the hum of traffic filled her ears. She stood there for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Was it worth it, she wondered. But deep down she already knew the answer. Mia woke up the next morning in her small, dimly lit room. The thin mattress creaked as she shifted, the sunlight from the window streaming in and casting long shadows on the peeling walls. She rubbed her tired eyes, her mind still heavy with the events of the previous night. What now? She thought, staring at the small stack of unpaid bills on the rickety table across the room. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table, breaking her thoughts. She picked it up and frowned. It wasn't a notification or a message, just a reminder of her now unemployed status. "Get it together, Mia," she whispered to herself. With a sigh, she got up and shuffled to the tiny kitchen corner of her rented room. The fridge was nearly empty, just a few eggs and a half-empty carton of milk. She fried an egg in silence, the sizzle and pop filling the void. As she sat down to eat, the sound of a car horn startled her. Beep, beep. It wasn't the usual honk from scooters or delivery trucks in her noisy alley. This was sharp and deliberate. Curious, Mia walked to the window and peered out. Her jaw dropped. Parked just outside the rundown apartment building was a sleek black limousine. The car's polished exterior reflected the morning sunlight, its presence starkly out of place amid the tangled wires and cracked pavement of the alley. "What on earth?" Mia muttered. The door of the limousine opened, and a tall, sharply dressed man stepped out. His black suit was pristine, and his polished shoes clicked against the uneven ground as he approached the building. Her landlady, Mrs. Nguyen, was already outside, sweeping the steps. She looked up, clearly startled by the man's presence. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice wary. "I'm here for Miss Mia Lee," the man said politely, his voice calm and measured. Mia's heart skipped a beat. She stepped back from the window, her thoughts racing. Why is someone like that looking for me? There was a knock on her door. Knock, knock, knock. She froze, unsure whether to answer. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. "Miss Mia Lee?" the man asked, his dark eyes meeting hers. "Yes," she replied cautiously. He bowed slightly. "My name is Eric Tran. I'm the personal assistant to Mr. Daniel Truong. He has sent me to deliver this to you." From his inside pocket, Eric pulled out an elegant envelope. Mia hesitated before taking it, her fingers brushing against the smooth paper. "What is this?" she asked. "A message from Mr. Truong," Eric replied. "He would like to meet you." Mia stared at the envelope, her mind whirring. "I don't know anyone named Daniel Truong." Eric smiled faintly. "You met him last night." Her eyes widened. "The old man?" Eric nodded. "Yes, Mr. Truong was the gentleman you assisted at the Grand Pearl Hotel. He wishes to thank you personally." Mia's heart raced. She opened the envelope, pulling out a cream-colored card. The handwriting was elegant and deliberate. "Miss Mia, thank you for your kindness and courage. Your actions last night were extraordinary, and I wish to express my gratitude. Please allow me the honor of meeting you. Sincerely, Daniel Truong." She read it twice, her fingers trembling slightly. "Why does he want to meet me?" "I'm afraid I don't have those details," Eric said, his expression unreadable. "But I assure you this is a genuine request." Mia looked at the card again. Part of her wanted to decline. Though this was all too strange, too sudden. But a quiet voice inside her urged her to go. "What if this is some kind of trick?" she asked, narrowing her eyes at Eric. Eric's expression softened. "I understand your hesitation, Miss Lee, but I can promise you. Mr. Truong has no ill intentions. He simply wants to thank you." She glanced out the window at the limousine, its glossy surface gleaming like an invitation. The curious eyes of her neighbors lingered on the car, their whispers carrying up to her room. "All right," she said finally, her voice firm. "I'll go." Eric gave a small nod. "Very well. Please follow me." Mia grabbed her worn purse and locked the door behind her. As she followed Eric down the narrow staircase, she felt a mix of apprehension and anticipation. The limousine's interior was nothing short of breathtaking. Plush leather seats, tinted windows, and subtle golden accents surrounded her. Mia hesitated at the door, feeling completely out of place. "Please make yourself comfortable," Eric said as he gestured for her to enter. Mia slid into the seat, her movements careful. As the car started to move, she stared out the window at the passing streets of Saigon. The familiar chaos of scooters, street vendors, and neon signs seemed distant inside the cocoon of luxury. "You seem nervous," Eric said gently. Mia glanced at him. "I've been in a car like this before. I've also never had someone go out of their way for me." Eric offered a faint smile. "Mr. Truong values acts of kindness. Few would have done what you did last night." The words lingered in the air, and Mia felt a flicker of pride, but it was quickly replaced by anxiety. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To Mr. Truong's residence," Eric replied. "It's just outside the city." Mia frowned slightly but didn't press further. The limousine glided smoothly along the roads, the urban sprawl gradually giving way to quieter streets lined with trees. When the car finally stopped, Mia's breath caught in her throat. Before her stood a sprawling estate, its gates adorned with intricate ironwork. Beyond the gates, a long driveway led to a mansion that looked like it belonged in a movie. Grand, elegant, and impossibly distant from her world. "This way, please," Eric said, stepping out of the car. Mia followed, her steps hesitant. As the gates opened and she walked up the driveway, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. The mansion loomed ahead of Mia like something out of a dream, its sprawling architecture both intimidating and awe-inspiring. Every step she took seemed to echo on the gravel path as she followed Eric toward the front door. The large oak door, intricately carved and towering over her, opened before they even reached it. A man stood in the doorway, his presence commanding and graceful. Tartatra. Yassesta with neatly combed dark hair, a sharp jawline, and eyes that seemed to reflect a quiet depth. His appearance was polished, but there was something raw and genuine in the way he smiled as he looked at her. "Mia Lee," he said warmly, his voice smooth like honey. "It's an honor to finally meet you in person." Mia stood frozen for a moment. She had imagined this moment over and over in her mind since she received the invitation. The man who had been so grateful to her, whose presence had left such an impression on her the previous night, was now standing right in front of her. "Mr. Truong," Mia replied, her voice small but steady. "I didn't expect to be here, let alone meet you." Daniel's smile deepened. "You're not the first person to be taken aback by my invitation, Mia. But I assure you, it's a sincere one." He stepped aside and gestured for her to enter. Mia hesitated, but then walked through the door, feeling the weight of the situation pressing on her chest. As she crossed the threshold, she couldn't help but marvel at the opulence surrounding her. The grand chandelier above, polished marble floors beneath her feet, and the artwork that adorned the walls. All of it screamed wealth and power. "This way," Daniel said, motioning for her to follow him. He led her through a series of rooms, each one more magnificent than the last. They arrived in a sitting room, cozy yet grand, with deep leather chairs and large windows overlooking a lush garden. "Please make yourself comfortable," Daniel offered, indicating one of the chairs. Mia sat down carefully, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was out of place in this world, surrounded by luxury she could never afford. But she had come this far, and there was no turning back now. Daniel sat across from her, his posture relaxed but attentive. "I owe you a great deal, Mia. What you did for me last night, it was something few would have the courage to do." Mia looked down at her hands, unsure of how to respond. "I just did what seemed right at the time," she said softly. "I couldn't stand by and watch someone be treated like that." Daniel leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. "And that's why I wanted to meet you, because you see the world differently. You understand kindness in a way many people can't." Mia felt a blush creep up her neck. "I'm just an ordinary person. I didn't think it would matter." "But it does," Daniel said, his tone unwavering. "That's why I want to offer you something." Mia's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" He smiled again, but this time there was a knowing look in his eyes. "I'm a businessman, Mia. I've spent my life building a company that stretches across several industries, but with that success has come a cost. I've seen people like you, people who understand the value of decency, fall through the cracks, while others who have no moral compass continue to climb. It's unfair." Mia felt a sense of unease building within her. She had heard rumors of people like Daniel Truong, people who wielded their power for their own gain. But there was something different about him. His words, though heavy with meaning, didn't seem to carry an ulterior motive. "I want to help people like you," Daniel continued. "I believe you have the potential to be more than just someone who works to survive. I can offer you an opportunity, one that could change your life." Mia's mind raced. Was this some kind of trap? Was she just being used for her brief moment of moral clarity? "I don't understand," she said slowly, trying to make sense of his words. "What kind of opportunity?" Daniel's smile softened and he leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. "I want to give you the chance to work for me. I have a number of projects in need of someone with your integrity. Someone who doesn't just look at things from a business standpoint, but from a human one. You would have a position within my company, one that pays well, and offer the kind of respect that you deserve. Mia's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't what she had expected. She had imagined a simple thank you, a polite gesture, and then she would leave. But this was something entirely different. "I don't know," Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've never worked in something like that. I'm just a receptionist. I don't have experience in business or anything like that." Daniel nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "That's precisely why I'm offering this to you. You have something that others don't, a sense of morality, a clarity of mind. You have the potential to learn, to grow beyond what you thought possible. This is about giving you a chance to build something real, something meaningful." Mia felt a rush of emotions. Part of her wanted to say yes, to seize this opportunity, and leave behind the exhausting, soul-crushing life she had been living. But another part of her feared the unknown, feared the changes that could come with stepping into a world she didn't belong to. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. "This feels too good to be true." Daniel's gaze softened, and he leaned forward, his voice gentle. "I understand your hesitation, but sometimes when we're given a chance like this, we have to take it, even if it's uncertain. I won't pressure you, Mia. Take your time to think about it, but know that this door will always be open for you." Mia sat in silence for a moment, her mind whirling. She had never been offered anything like this before, this kind of security, this kind of future. But at what cost? What would she have to give up to enter this world? "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Truong, but I need time." Daniel smiled warmly. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." The room fell into a quiet silence, and Mia found herself staring at the window, her thoughts racing. What was she really being offered here? And was it truly the chance of a lifetime, or was it just another way for someone like Daniel to manipulate the system? As the minutes ticked by, Mia felt a shift inside her. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she did. Options. And for once it was a feeling she wasn't willing to let go of. Mia left Daniel's mansion with her mind still racing, the words he had spoken echoing in her ears. She felt a mixture of awe, uncertainty, and fear. The luxurious limousine had taken her back to her small apartment, but even the familiar streets of Saigon didn't offer her the comfort they once had. Inside her room, the weight of the evening's conversation pressed heavily on her. She couldn't remember the last time someone had offered her a chance like this. Her days had been spent in routine, waking up early, trudging through long hours at the hotel and returning home only to collapse into bed. But now everything seemed different. Daniel's offer had introduced a new world, a new path, and it was a path that could change everything. She sat at her small desk, the faint sound of traffic drifting in through the window. Her fingers tapped nervously against the wood as she stared at the envelope Daniel had given her. He had asked for time, and though she was grateful for the space, the decision felt overwhelming. She glanced around her room, at the worn furniture and the pile of overdue bills on the desk. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The thought of leaving all this behind to enter a world of power and wealth was both thrilling and terrifying. Was she ready for that? Could she handle the pressure, the expectations? She picked up her phone and opened the messages from her mother, which had been piling up all day. Her mother's words were filled with concern and disappointment as usual. "Are you sure about this? Don't let them use you. It's too risky." Mia sighed, her fingers hovering over the screen. "Some But Mia had longed for something more. She had longed to feel like she was worth more than just her day-to-day existence. The thought of Daniel's words brought her back to the present. His offer had been sincere, hadn't it? His eyes had shown respect, something she rarely saw in the people who crossed her path. He had seen something in her that she wasn't sure existed, but was she willing to walk into the unknown to find out? She decided to sleep on it. Tomorrow she would meet with Daniel again and make her decision. She had to trust that the choice she made would be the right one. The next day Mia woke early, the uncertainty still lingering in her mind. She had spent the night tossing and turning, her thoughts a whirlwind of possibilities. But now, with the morning sun casting its warm light into her room, she knew she couldn't put off the decision any longer. After a quick breakfast, she dressed in a simple blouse and skirt, trying to shake off the nervousness that had settled in her stomach. She knew she couldn't go back to the hotel today. Her mind was too consumed with the choice ahead. She needed clarity, and for that she needed to speak with Daniel again. When Mia arrived at the mansion, the security guard greeted her with the same polite smile, and she was led inside once more. This time, the house felt more intimidating than before. The air was thick with unspoken promises and expectations. She was escorted to the same sitting room, where Daniel was already waiting for her. His smile was warm, but there was something in his eyes that suggested he knew the decision Mia was facing. "Good morning, Mia," Daniel said as she entered. "I hope you've had time to think." "I have," Mia replied, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I've been thinking about it all night, and I'm still not sure." Daniel's expression softened. "You don't have to decide right away, Mia. But I want you to know that what I'm offering you is a real opportunity. One that could change your life forever, but it's not just about the money or the status. It's about the kind of person you want to be." Mia swallowed hard, meeting his gaze. "I'm just scared, Daniel. I've never been offered something like this. I don't know if I can handle it." "I understand," Daniel said gently. "But sometimes, Mia, it's about taking that step even when you're afraid. You can stay where you are, and that's okay. But if you choose to come with me, you'll be part of something bigger, something meaningful." Mia felt the weight of his words, and for the first time in a long while she allowed herself to imagine a different life. She could see herself, no longer trapped in her small room, and no longer living paycheck to paycheck. But would it be enough? Would she be enough in that world? "What would I have to do?" she asked quietly, the question leaving her lips before she had even fully processed it. Daniel smiled, his gaze never leaving hers. "You'd be my right-hand person. You'd oversee projects that focus on social responsibility, ones that can have a real impact on people's lives. You wouldn't just be a cog in a machine, Mia. You'd be the one driving change." Mia's heart raced. The idea was intoxicating, being part of something that could make a real difference, but as she looked around the room, at the wealth and grandeur that surrounded her, she felt a twinge of doubt. "And what's the catch?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. "What did you expect in return?" Daniel leaned forward, his eyes soft but intense. "I don't expect anything, Mia. I've seen what you did last night, and I admire that. I'm offering you this because I believe you can help us build something better. But it's your choice." Mia's thoughts were in turmoil. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this was a genuine offer, but something inside her still hesitated. Was she really ready to leave behind everything she knew for the unknown? "I need more time," Mia said softly, looking away. "I need to be sure." Daniel didn't press her further. He nodded, his expression understanding. "Of course. Take all the time you need. This is a big decision." Mia stood up slowly, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. "Thank you for being patient with me," she said, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said, standing up as well. "You'll find your answer when the time is right." As Mia walked out of the mansion, the cool air of the evening brushed against her skin. She felt conflicted, torn between the life she had and the life she could have. The decision felt too big for her to make alone, but she had to trust herself to choose the path that would shape her future. The next few days passed in a blur. Mia spent hours turning the decision over in her mind, consulting friends, reading articles, and weighing her options. But no matter what she did, one thing was clear. Her life was at a crossroads, and there was no turning back. Finally, after days of deliberation, Mia knew what she had to do. She had to seize the opportunity, take the leap, and trust that she could handle whatever came next. She reached for her phone and dialed Daniel's number, her hand trembling slightly as she waited for him to answer. "Hello?" Daniel's voice was warm, welcoming. "It's Mia," she said, her voice steady now. "I've made my decision." Mia's heart beat faster as she spoke those words. "I've made my decision," she repeated, trying to steady her breath. She wasn't sure what had taken over her, but deep inside she felt a shift. There was no turning back now. Daniel's voice came through the phone, calm and understanding. "I'm glad to hear that, Mia. What have you decided?" Mia stared at the familiar walls of her small apartment, the peeling paint, the chipped furniture, the stack of overdue bills on her desk. For years, these were the things that defined her life. But now, as she stood on the precipice of something greater, she could feel a sense of resolve settling into her bones. "I'm in," she said, the words flowing from her mouth with surprising confidence. "I'm ready to take that step. I want to work with you." Daniel didn't immediately respond, and for a moment Mia wondered if she had made a mistake. But then she heard the smile in his voice. "I knew you would make the right choice," he said softly. "Welcome to the team, Mia. You're going to do amazing things." Mia felt a rush of relief and excitement flood through her, but underneath there was still a gnawing uncertainty. What would this new life look like? Would she be able to navigate the high expectations and pressures of this world that she had never been a part of? But as Daniel spoke about the plans, the projects, and the impact they would have, the doubts slowly started to fade. "I'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning," Daniel continued. "We'll get you started right away. This is just the beginning, Mia." Her hands shook as she ended the call, the weight of a decision finally hitting her. She had crossed a line. She had chosen a different path, and there was no turning back. The life she had known was over, and now she had to learn to live in a world of power and influence. A world where the stakes were higher and the risks greater. As the evening turned to night, Mia sat quietly in her apartment staring out of the window. The lights of Saigon twinkled below, a city full of dreams, secrets. She wondered where this new path would lead her. Would it fulfill the promise she had hoped for, or would it consume her in ways she couldn't predict? For the first time in a long while, Mia felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew that she had made the right choice for herself. She had stepped into the unknown, and now it was time to see where it would take her. The next morning, Mia stood in front of her mirror, looking at the woman staring back at her. She was no longer the same person who had walked into Daniel's mansion days ago. She had taken a step that would change her life forever. She wasn't just a hotel worker anymore. She was about to be part of something bigger, a movement that could make a real difference. As she dressed and prepared to leave her apartment for the last time, she took one final look around. The cramped space had been her home for so long, but it no longer felt like hers. It was time to move on. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Her heart skipped a beat, and she opened it to find a well-dressed driver standing in the hallway. He was polite and professional, with a warm smile on his face. "Good morning, Miss Mia," he said. "Mr. Daniel has sent me to take you to the office." Mia nodded, trying to steady the mix of excitement and nerves that swirled inside her. "Thank you," she said, her voice more confident than she felt. She grabbed her bag and walked out of the apartment, closing the door behind her for the final time. As she stepped into the waiting car, the smooth leather seats and sleek interior reminded her of the world she was about to enter. The city of Saigon seemed so far away now, and yet she knew she would never be the same person who had walked its streets yesterday. The drive to Danielle's office felt surreal. The cityscape passed by in a blur as Mia gazed out of the window, her mind swirling with thoughts of the future. She was about to enter a world of power, of change, and of responsibility. She had a feeling it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready. When they arrived at the office, the building was everything Mia had imagined, modern, sleek, and imposing. As they entered, she was greeted by a team of people who welcomed her with warm smiles and polite handshakes. Everything felt so professional, so different from her former life. Daniel appeared shortly after, his presence commanding the room. He was dressed in a sharp suit, and as he approached Mia, his smile was full of pride. "Welcome to the team, Mia," he said, his voice warm but firm. "We're lucky to have you with us." Mia smiled, trying to hide her nervousness. This was it. Her new life was beginning. As the day went on, Mia was introduced to the various members of the team, each with their own responsibilities. She quickly realized that she had a lot to learn, but for the first time, she felt like she was part of something meaningful, something that could change lives. Throughout the day, Daniel guided her through the plans they had in place, projects aimed at social responsibility, community outreach, and improving the lives of those less fortunate. Mia felt her heart swell with a sense of purpose. This was what she had always wanted, an opportunity to make a real difference, but with each passing moment, the weight of her decision settled deeper inside her. The expectations were high. There was no room for failure. She wasn't just a cog in the machine, she was going to be a leader, someone who would shape the future of these projects. It was an enormous responsibility. As the day came to a close, Mia stood by the window in her new office, looking out at the city below. The lights of Saigon shimmered in the distance, and she realized that she was no longer just a bystander in this world. She was part of it now. For better or for worse, Mia had chosen her path. She had stepped into the unknown, and there was no turning back. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe Storyboat for daily upcoming heartwarming stories.